We believe these individuals are from Champlain Park High School, which is in and around the area of Minneapolis, above Brooklyn Park, as I had said, one of these northwestern suburbs. Not too far, though. They have made their way closer now to downtown on North Central Avenue. And in fact, we have one of CARE's reporters, Danny Spiewak, reporting for us, who has been on the ground over the last couple of weeks. Danny, thank you so much for joining us. I know you guys have had barely any time to sleep, eat, or anything else other than write stories the last couple of weeks because of all that's happened. So I want to first thank you for your journalism. This is a huge thing, obviously, what we do to let folks know what's going on the ground. So I want to start there. Can you give us, and I know it's tough for us to fathom since we're not on the ground, give us just an idea of what the environment is from an outsider's perspective. It seems like it is so volatile right now.
Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate being able to tell people outside of Minnesota exactly what is going on here, the big issues that are driving the situation, and just kind of giving you the real-time impact. So the best way I can describe it is there's just kind of this lingering sense of tension across Minnesota, across the Twin Cities. But it's not as though if you were to walk outside and you looked on the street that you would see mass federal agents lining the busy streets, lining the major freeways and interstates. But there is such a significant federal presence here, with more federal agents than there are local police officers in our two largest cities, that there are these very targeted and sporadic situations across the Twin Cities metro area, even across the state into what we call greater Minnesota, our smaller cities and smaller towns, where these immigration enforcement actions are taking place, and they're unfolding in public. You just don't know where they're going to be. They're unfolding in public, oftentimes met by protests once people find out that ICE is in the area. And as news organizations, we are trying to keep up with where everything is happening, but you can't predict from one minute to the next where anything's going to be happening. And so there's a feeling of tension, especially in the last week or so after the killing of Renee Good in Minneapolis. And then we had a second shooting involving a federal agent last night, somebody shot in the leg during a confrontation. And so it's very tense. There are, restaurants that have either closed early or closed altogether. There's an impact to daily life, but it isn't as though everything has come to a standstill. It's just more the uncertainty of not knowing when things might unfold.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks from Charlotte remember, right, with some of the ICE incidents that happened here. It was months ago now. Things have shifted to Minneapolis. It started with the Somali population there in the community. I remember that very vividly over the last 3 weeks, even a month now, Danny. And I guess I got to ask, we've heard the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, talk about trying to quell a potential type of altercation, whether it be, violence or otherwise, between, state and local police and these federal officers, these Border Patrol ICE agents. And in fact, it seems like, based on the response that we have seen, law enforcement is backing what is coming from Border Patrol based on the agent that was involved in the Renee Good killing with the internal injuries. What can you tell us in terms of how local police are dealing with Border Patrol at this moment? Are things tense there? Because we saw in Charlotte here that CMPD, they were really able to keep their distance in some respects, I would say, and really allow ICE to do their thing while trying to obviously patrol our neighborhoods and obviously keep safe neighborhoods as well. So can I ask you that? What does that look like?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I'm not sure or familiar with just how everything unfolded with CMPD and their interaction with federal law enforcement. But in Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities that are obviously have their separate police departments, they both have ordinances in place known as a separation ordinance, where they cannot assist federal law enforcement with any immigration activity. However, they can show up to a scene if it's getting out of hand or if there's a protest, which is what we see all the time, where local law enforcement is put in the position of trying to do what I would call crowd control, but not having the ability, of course, to enforce any federal immigration law or work alongside the federal agents. So there's some tension between the local police and the federal agents because the Minneapolis police chief here, Brian O'Hara in Minneapolis, has said that they're not getting really any information from the federal agents. They have no idea where these operations are going to be taking place, and they get put into these situations where they are kind of caught in the middle of trying to provide public safety services to people and try to keep scenes calm, but yet they really have almost what seems like a very fractured relationship with the federal agents. And so that's definitely a complication and a consideration here. It's a very unique situation.
I also got to ask, Danny, the president has threatened over the last 24 hours, if not in the last couple of hours, as I'm watching some of our big board news here from across the United States, that he's threatening to use the Insurrection Act to end these protests in Minneapolis. I'm sure you've seen, this is not new. We've seen a lot of discussion about this, both at the Capitol in Washington, D.C., with some of the disbursement of National Guard troops there. What is the sense that this could actually happen? Because this could really disrupt life, as you're already saying that these operations are already having. So what does that look like? And are you getting any other developments in that area?
It's a very serious threat, and the Democratic officials almost universally criticizing the Trump administration's approach here, and many of them coming out saying that the Insurrection Act, invoking it, would be harmful. What I can tell you is I'm in the state capitol right now in our Capitol Bureau in St. Paul, and we know that Governor Walz, he did a statewide address last night before the second shooting. So he did an address across the state, televised, that we brought on our air, basically criticizing the ICE enforcement and criticizing the Trump administration. Then you had the shooting, and then now you have the threat to invoke the Insurrection Act. And Governor Walz has not spoken publicly yet today. He's really kind of laid low. He sent out a social media post just saying he wants to turn the temperature down. And we're told by the governor's office that he's trying to directly reach the president, working with other partners and leaders in the cities to try to reach the president and convince him not to do this. So it sounds like there's some backroom type negotiations maybe potentially being attempted here.
Man, this stuff is fascinating. I do have to ask, because I do believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you were in Minneapolis during George Floyd. Can you, and I know that this is hard because you don't want to compare. Each situation is much different, and we want to give honor to each individual, obviously the victims that died, but also just in general, in terms of the environment and the atmosphere. What does that look like? Is it the same in that sense in terms of your feeling?
It's a really good question, especially because the incident with Renee Good happened like a mile or so from the site of George Floyd's murder. So it's the same neighborhood, basically, of Minneapolis. So I'll start with just there are some similarities because in terms of, I would just say we're very sensitive to the possibility or thought that there could be unrest in the Twin Cities. So those preparations are people take that very seriously because of what we saw in 2020. But this is so there's that same tension, that same feeling of dread of what's going to happen next. So that's similar from that regard, but it's different in the respect that it's a totally different dynamic because in 2020 you had the murder of a citizen of Minnesota by a local police officer, and so the tension was between the community and the Minneapolis Police Department. And so the third precinct that burned was a visible symbol of the city's policing, and it led to so many reform efforts. But this one is a clash between people in the community supported by their local and state officials versus the federal government. And you have a federal entity that is in the community that's causing backlash from those that live here. So it's just a totally different dynamic, and it's just very similar in some ways, but also very different in other ways, I guess I would say.
Well, in some of the scenes that I've seen, I'm sure you've obviously been witnessing the same thing. They're hard to put into words to describe. In fact, I think last night I saw a man near Columbia Heights in this neighborhood potentially kind of saying, kind of pleading with these ICE agents. It was under the cover of night, and he was saying literally in each of these houses, there are children that are not only watching what is happening outside, but wondering, right, if they're safe. And he was just kind of saying he couldn't believe this was happening in America. And it seems like this sentiment is being felt not only across Minneapolis, but across the United States, right? But just this plea from a father to these individuals asking, you guys have families at home. You have left your families to do this. Do you think this is right? Have you heard those same sentiments kind of told to you guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think from people in the community, there is such a lack of trust between the federal government and many in the community. Now, this is different depending on where you are in Minnesota, because obviously, Minnesota is a blue state, and the Twin Cities are, heavily Democratic, typically politically. That's not universal, but the cities themselves, I think there's a lot of anger within the community that they feel that the Trump administration has kind of come into the community and is causing havoc. But Minnesota is a closely divided state. It's the closest divided legislature in the country. The House of Representatives is tied with Republicans and Democrats. So there is a segment of the population in Minnesota, I think, that believes that the ICE presence is warranted, that they supported the president's deportation promises during the 2024 campaign. And so it depends on where you are in the state in terms of how people are feeling. But certainly in the heart of Minneapolis and St. Paul, there is a sense that they believe the federal government has come in against their will and is imposing their will for the purpose of immigration enforcement.
Let's get human here for a second. Danny, we're humans. We've been in this business for a couple of years. Some of the things that we've seen, we've never seen before. And I know, like I said, you're witnessing them firsthand. So I can't imagine that. But I do want to ask, in terms of how people are experiencing this, the reporters that are in the room, yourself, and really what's been told to you guys of what to do, how to take care of yourselves, not just you, but other citizens that are in these neighborhoods that are maybe tear gassed, that are seeing these incidents go on. What are the best things, and what things do you kind of cling to when you're seeing some of this unrest? Because I think people forget, right? We're human too. We report on these things. There are some harsh things said in the media about us. We got to be honest about that, but these are our jobs. We take them seriously. And obviously we're trying to do the service that we can for the community and for our communities that listen in on this, because as we've seen, and I've seen firsthand as well, there's a lot of fear that plays into this. Not to throw in anything personal, but I've seen family members in Chicago that have been detained, by ICE before. So I think a lot of us have personal stories that go along with this. So from that, sorry not to speak too much, your experience, how are you guys feeling, and what can folks really do who are on the ground? What have you guys been told to try and help yourselves move this along?
I love that question because it's something that I think a lot of people wrestle with, especially in whether it's the media or just anybody else that's in the community and is living through this, no matter what you feel about the situation. But I think the thing I have to remind myself is, and the one best advice I guess I would have for people is that, when you talk to real people on the street, most people just want the chaos to end. Again, I understand there's different political views on what's occurring and who's at fault, but I think most people at the end of the day just they would like peace back on the streets. They would like us to be able to move forward. I think there's kind of almost like an extreme element that is amplified on social media, that it starts to feel like, oh my goodness, like everybody is so divided, which, to an extent, I think people are very divided in America. But I think that it's amplified in the social media culture, that I think if you just talk to real people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, I do think that there is just a sense of, okay, let's, wish there was a way to get out of this, wish there was a way to work together.
I think you bring up a great point, right? In social media, there seems to be like this echo chamber of, the same thoughts that you are having that just continue to be reverberated, right? And sometimes it's good to hear other perspectives, although it doesn't feel good, maybe to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I think that's what reporters do every single day. So, Danny, thank you for sharing your time with us. And I'll ask one final thing to you, which is anything else that I didn't ask you that you think is important, man, that you want to tell us about the situation that's ongoing, or kind of, what you've experienced?
Yeah, I guess I would just say for anybody watching outside of Minnesota, outside of the Twin Cities, I do not want to minimize the seriousness of the situation that we're in. And perhaps you saw this in Charlotte as well. But I do think when people look at the images, it's not as though the entire Twin Cities, the entire state of Minnesota is currently in, like that every street is currently the images you're seeing, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Like I mentioned to start the interview, that if you were to walk outside and just look around, nothing at first glance might seem off. But there's a lot of tension. There's a lot going on. It's a major, major national news story that we're all kind of thrown in the middle of. But the people here are persisting and trying to move forward with daily life.
Well, I know that our company has put out the call for journalists to come and support you guys in your efforts. And I know a lot of folks will do so and do that. So stay strong. Thank you again for all the great reporting that's coming from your station. And I'm sure we'll check back again. So please don't mind us bothering you again if you can spare the time.
Sounds good. Anytime. Happy to join you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dennis Biwak from KARE 11 News in Minneapolis. Folks, we're going to take a 2-minute break.